Both the Camp David Accords, which led to the Israeli-Egypt peace treaty, and the Oslo Accords, which attempted to bring peace between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization, led to the brutal assassinations of both an Egyptian president and an Israeli prime minister.
You know what's interesting about assassination? Well, not only does it change those popularity polls in a big fucking hurry, but it's also interesting to notice who it is we assassinate. Do you ever notice who it is? Stop to think of who it is we kill. It's always people who've told us to live together in harmony and try to love one another. Jesus, Gandhi, Lincoln, John Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, John Lennon. They all said, try to live together peacefully. Bam! Right in the fucking head. Apparently, we're not ready for that.
The first assassination was of Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. Mohammed Anwar el-Sadat was an Egyptian politician and military officer who served as the third president of Egypt from 15 October 1970 until his assassination by fundamentalist army officers on 6 October 1981. Sadat was a senior member of the three officers who overthrew King Farouk in the Egyptian Revolution of 1952 and a close confidant of President Gamal Abdel Nasser, under whom he served as vice president twice and whom he succeeded as president in 1970. In 1978, Sadat and Menachem Begin, Prime Minister of Israel, signed a peace treaty in cooperation with United States President Jimmy Carter, for which they were recognized with a Nobel Peace Prize. As president, he led Egypt in the Yom Kippur War of 1973 to regain Egypt's Sinai Peninsula, which Israel had occupied since the Six-Day War of 1967, making him a hero in Egypt and, for a time, the wider Arab world. Afterwards, he engaged in negotiations with Israel, culminating in the Egypt-Israel Peace Treaty. This won him and Menachem Begin the Nobel Peace Prize, making Sadat the first Muslim Nobel laureate. Although a reaction to the treaty, which resulted in the return of Sinai to Egypt, was generally favorable among Egyptians, it was rejected by the country's Muslim Brotherhood and the left, which felt Sadat had abandoned efforts to ensure a Palestinian state. With the exception of Sudan, the Arab world and the Palestinian Liberation Organization strongly opposed Sadat's efforts to make a separate peace with Israel without prior consultations with the Arab states. His refusal to reconcile with him over the Palestinian issue resulted in Egypt being suspended from the Arab League in 1979 to 1989. The peace treaty was also one of the primary factors that led to his assassination. On 6 October 1981, Sadat was assassinated during the annual Victory Parade held in Cairo to celebrate Egypt's crossing of the Suez Canal. Lieutenant Khalid Islamboli emptied his assault rifle into Sadat's body while in front of the grandstand, mortally wounding the president. In addition to Sadat, 11 others were killed, including the Cuban ambassador and an Omani general. 28 were wounded, including Vice President Hosni Mubarak, Irish Defense Minister James Tully, and 4 U.S. military liaison officers. The assassination squad was led by Lieutenant Khalid Islamboli after a fatwa approving the assassination had been obtained from Omar Abdel Rahman. Islamboli was tried, found guilty, and sentenced to death, and executed by firing squad in April 1982. Abdul Rahman, however, spent 3 years in Egyptian jails while awaiting trial on charges of issuing the fatwa. He was not convicted, but instead expelled from Egypt and traveled to Afghanistan, where he built a strong rapport with Osama bin Laden during the Soviet-Afghan War. In July 1990, Abdel Rahman traveled to New York City, where he is said to have established links with the CIA, who offered funding and military logistical support to those fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan. Despite U.S. support for the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, Abdul Rahman spoke out vociferously against the country. He issued a fatwa in the U.S. that declared it lawful to rob banks and kill Jews in the U.S. Preaching at 3 mosques in the New York City area, Abdul Rahman was soon surrounded by a core group of devoted followers that included persons who would soon be responsible for the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. After the bombing, the FBI began to investigate Abdul Rahman and his followers more closely. Abdul Rahman was arrested on 24 June 1993 along with 9 of his followers. On 1 October 1995, he was convicted of seditious conspiracy, solicitation to murder Egyptian President Hosni Mubarak, conspiracy to murder President Mubarak, solicitation to attack a U.S. military installation, and conspiracy to conduct bombings. In 1996, he was sentenced to life in solitary confinement without parole. The second assassination was of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin. Yitzhak Rabin was an Israeli politician, statesman, and general. He was the 5th Prime Minister of Israel, serving 2 terms in office, 1974 to 1977, and from 1992 until his assassination in 1995. Rabin served as Israel's ambassador to the United States from 1968 to 1973. During a period of deepening U.S.-Israel ties. He was appointed Prime Minister of Israel in 1974 after the resignation of Golda Meir. In his first term, Rabin signed the Sinai Interim Agreement and ordered the Entebbe raid. He resigned in 1977 in the wake of financial scandal. Rabin was Israel's Minister of Defense for much of the 1980s, including during the outbreak of the First Intifada. In 1992, Rabin was re-elected as Prime Minister on a platform embracing the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. He signed several historic agreements with the Palestinian leadership as part of the Oslo Accords. In 1994, Rabin won the Nobel Peace Prize together with a longtime political rival Shimon Peres and Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat. Rabin also signed a peace treaty with Jordan in 1994. In November 1995, he was assassinated by an extremist named Yigal Amir, who opposed the terms of the Oslo Accords. Amir was convicted of Rabin's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment. Rabin was the first native-born Prime Minister of Israel, the only Prime Minister to be assassinated, and the second to die in office after Levi Eshkol. Rabin has become a symbol of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. Upon hearing that Rabin was dead, Amir told the police that he was satisfied and was acting on the orders of God. At his trial, Amir said he did not care if the outcome was death or paralysis as long as Rabin was out of the way. He expressed no regret for his actions. Former Prime Ministers Benjamin Netanyahu and Ehud Olmert have said that Yigal Amir will never be released from prison. On December 19, 2001, the Knesset, by a majority of 62 members, approved the Yigal Amir law, which prohibits a parole board from recommending pardon or shortening time in prison for a murderer of a prime minister. Netanyahu faced strong criticism after Rabin's death due to rallies organized by Likud and other right-wing groups featuring depictions of Rabin in a Nazi SS uniform or in the crosshairs of a gun. Protesters compared the Labour Party to the Nazis and Rabin to Adolf Hitler and chanted, "Rabin is a murderer and Rabin is a traitor." In July 1995, Netanyahu led a mock funeral procession featuring a coffin and hangman's noose at an anti-Rabin rally where protesters chanted "Death to Rabin." The chief of internal security, Carmi Gillen, then alerted Netanyahu of a plot on Rabin's life and asked him to moderate the protest rhetoric, which Netanyahu declined.
Outside the hospital, the crowd began to chant, "Bibi is a murderer." The sign says, "Bibi, Rabin's blood is on your hands."
An assassin has taken yet another world leader away from us. It was just after the biggest peace rally in Tel Aviv.
Rabin's widow blamed Netanyahu for contributing to her husband's death.
The assassination of Yitzhak Rabin has also produced shock in the Palestinian community.
And said so on worldwide television.
Your husband pointed the finger at Mr. Netanyahu and said, you must stop this incitement.
Yeah.
To what extent do you blame Mr. Netanyahu and the Likud for what has happened?
I do blame them. In a rally in Kikar Tzion in Jerusalem that showed him in the uniform of a Nazi. So Mr. Bibi Netanyahu, now he can say from here to eternity that he didn't support it and didn't agree with it, but he was there and he didn't stop it.